Contestants are often heard talking about the countless times they tested and refined their recipes before stepping into the tent.
It's been through many versions of this. So it started as a loop-the-loop, then I went for a curve, but eventually I just settled on it's a straight dive.
It might sound surprising for such an intense competition, but each baker arrives in the tent already familiar with the recipes for both their signature challenge and showstopper. Still, the show includes plenty of variables to keep audiences on edge despite all the preparation. One of the biggest factors is the environment inside the tent itself. Because filming takes place during the warmer months, contestants are constantly battling heat that can ruin textures and throw ingredients off balance. And no matter how many practice runs they've done at home, there's never any certainty things will go smoothly once the cameras are rolling. Bakers regularly face setbacks like missing ingredients, dough that rises too much, or ovens behaving completely differently than expected.
God, this is a mess.
That uncertainty is a huge part of what keeps the show so engaging. No matter how much effort the bakers put in before filming begins, there's always a clear feeling of relief when everything works out, and plenty of suspense when it all starts to unravel. One question fans constantly ask is what becomes of all those mouth-watering desserts once filming wraps up. On screen, viewers usually only catch the judges taking a few bites while critiquing each bake. So what actually happens to the leftovers? As it turns out, the contestants do get the chance to enjoy their creations afterward. A producer for the series makes sure the baker's break area is stocked with trays containing pieces of every featured bake. That means contestants can taste not only their own work, but also the recipes prepared by the other competitors. The production crew gets to join in as well, giving everyone a well-earned sugary payoff after a long day of filming.
I'm having enough for my lunch, well done.
Thank
I
you.
want you to keep me this bit for my lunch.
Keep me that bit. Thank you.
In another surprising behind-the-scenes detail, the crew members responsible for the equipment have to test every oven to make sure it's working properly. And they do that by baking a Victoria sponge each day in every single oven. It turns into a massive overload of cake and sugar for anyone willing to keep eating it all. Who actually handles all the cleanup duties on the Great British Bake Off? Every episode shows contestants creating chaos as they race through mixing bowls, tools, and kitchen gadgets. What viewers never really witness is the massive reset that happens before the next challenge begins. With a dozen workstations being constantly used, clever editing creates the illusion that everything is instantly spotless thanks to some invisible army backstage. In truth, the cleanup crew is much smaller than people expect, but incredibly efficient. And the long stretches between challenges, when runners rush to reorganize every station, are simply edited out. On screen, it all looks seamless, even after the bakers leave complete disasters behind moments earlier. In 2024, the show's official TikTok page highlighted one especially important crew member named Gina, affectionately known as the production's head, Sparkleizer. To recognize all her hard work behind the scenes, host Allison Hammond surprised her with a miniature version of the famous glass cake stand trophy, a fun tribute to someone viewers rarely get to see. And why not just rely on industrial dishwashers for all that cleaning? The answer is simple. Many of the stubborn baked-on ingredients are too difficult for machines to fully remove. In the end, good old-fashioned scrubbing still works better than automation when it comes to getting the tent back into perfect condition.
Back for another week, here I am.
It might seem like every episode is filmed over the course of a single day, but the finished product is actually assembled from 2 full days of shooting carefully stitched together through editing. One of the most unexpected tricks behind the scenes involves the contestants' wardrobes. To maintain visual continuity, the bakers are required to wear the exact same outfits throughout the entire weekend whenever the cameras are rolling. Once viewers notice it, it's hard not to see the show differently afterward. On paper, that may not sound too bad, but filming an episode is a hectic and often exhausting 2-day experience. The contestants spend hours rushing around a warm tent during the middle of a British summer, only to return the next day and repeat the process in the very same clothes. Add in flour, batter, melted chocolate, and other baking disasters that inevitably end up beyond the apron. And the situation becomes far less appealing than the desserts themselves. You might assume the bakers at least get a chance to wash their outfits overnight before returning for day 2. But according to behind-the-scenes details, contestants usually have to put the same worn and messy clothes back on Sunday morning without much opportunity to freshen them up first. The bakers inside the tent aren't professional chefs. The opening of the Great British Bake Off specifically describes them as the best amateur bakers, to make it clear that trained professionals aren't competing for the iconic glass cake stand. Because of that, Contestants spend their weekends filming the show while still balancing their normal careers and day jobs throughout the rest of the week.
When Sandro, a fitness fanatic from East London, isn't hitting the gym, he works as a full-time nanny.
Because traveling back and forth would be impractical for contestants filming long days, often around 13 to 16 hours over the weekend, they stay overnight in a hotel between Saturday and Sunday while shooting The Great British Bake Off. If the schedule is even close to as draining as it sounds, it makes their consistent performances in the tent even more impressive. And that's not even the full workload. During the week, the bakers still have to carve out time to rehearse their signature and showstopper bakes, as well as source and buy all the necessary ingredients. It's a demanding routine that leaves very little breathing room, showing just how intense the commitment really is. Instant recognition is as much a part of the Great British Bake Off as ingredients like flour, eggs, and the occasional soggy bottom. Choosing a favorite baker and following their journey through challenges like Bread Week, all under the pressure of the iconic white tent, is a big part of the show's appeal. Luckily, the selection process is designed to ensure the final 12 contestants can handle the sudden wave of attention, including a pre-filming session with the show's psychologist. For a few, however, that attention doesn't just stick around, it grows. One standout example is Nadia Hussein, often described as the nation's sweetheart. She has shown how a baking competition can completely transform a person's career. Her journey began in the best possible way, winning season 6 in confident style. After her victory, she quickly returned to television, fronting a 2-part travel series called The Chronicles of Nadia on BBC One. Since then, she has become one of Britain's most recognized baking figures.
My dad now introduces me as, this is the daughter that made the cake for the Queen. I don't even have a name anymore.
How often have you finished watching The Great British Bake Off only to head straight to the shop and suddenly load up on ingredients you'd never even considered before? If that sounds familiar, you're definitely not the only one. The so-called bake-off effect, a phrase used to describe the sharp rise in demand for ingredients featured on the show, has become a well-known phenomenon across the UK. According to The Express, the 2015 series alone triggered a 33% increase in salted caramel sauce sales, a 180% jump for Peruvian goldenberries, and an astonishing 300% rise in crystallized ginger purchases. While staples like flour, sugar, and chocolate tend to see predictable seasonal boosts, the surge in more obscure ingredients is far less easy to anticipate. Since supermarkets don't receive advance notice of what contestants will be using, they often find themselves rushing to restock items that were barely on shelves, or not stocked at all. Morrison's even took the trend seriously enough to act on it directly. In 2016, the retailer reportedly created a dedicated bake-off officer role to track the show and anticipate ingredient demand based on what appears in each episode. It's natural to daydream about walking into the Great British Bake Off with total confidence, maybe even casually exchanging a high five with host Noel Fielding on the way in. But actually getting there is far more complicated than it looks from the outside. As Season 8 finalist Stephen Carter-Bailey has explained, the application journey is far from easy. In an interview with Mashed, he described the selection process as demanding and thorough, with multiple stages before anyone ever sets foot in the tent. Constant questions, interviews, credit checks, police checks, health checks, psychiatric checks, ability checks. You're constantly going down in front of cameras, getting checked for stress levels. According to reporting from the Great British Bake Off coverage on Telemix, the 2022 audition process included a number of firm eligibility requirements. For instance, applicants were not allowed to work professionally as bakers, chefs, or cooks, and they also could not have earned any formal culinary qualification within the previous decade.
Never baked before, let alone competitively, let alone on Bake Off.
Even after satisfying the eligibility criteria and submitting a detailed application, hopefuls still face a phone interview before they can be considered for the next stage. Those who progress are then invited to London for additional interviews and a screen test, where they're also required to bring along several of their own baked goods and cover the cost themselves. It's a pretty intense process from start to finish.
Can you tell us about your flapjack, please?
Started making it, had a breakdown. Bon appetit.
The Great British Bake Off has always been as much about the people as it is about the pastries, and the production team has clearly treated that as a core principle. Across its many seasons, the show has featured contestants spanning a wide range of ages, careers, body types, sexual orientations, and ethnic backgrounds. Just as importantly, The series tends not to frame anyone's identity as a dramatic backstory, designed for emotional effect. The program has also been widely viewed as reflecting a more contemporary and diverse image of Britain itself, and has been referenced in discussions about countering anti-immigration narratives. Global Citizen has even pointed to the show as an example of how mainstream entertainment can showcase inclusion across modern British identities. The image of the Great British Bake Off is often defined by the judges sitting together at the table, examining a flawless technical bake placed neatly in front of them. While it can look as though Paul Hollywood and Prue Leith are sampling creations they've made themselves, that isn't actually the case. The example bakes are not prepared by the judges at all. A lot of this comes down to scheduling. Filming days run extremely long, and the judges are frequently needed in other parts of the production. So spending hours baking in a kitchen simply isn't practical. Instead, those showcase bakes are handled by a dedicated home economics team, whose skill is evident in the polished results seen on screen. That same team also manages a wide range of behind-the-scenes responsibilities, from preparing meals like Paul Hollywood's breakfast to reviewing each contestant's planned signature and showstopper recipes. On top of that, they source all the required ingredients and equipment, often beginning preparations as early as 2 months before filming even begins. The Great British Bake Off is known for its unusually warm tone, built around a competitive but supportive atmosphere, colorful bunting, contestants encouraging one another, and even hosts openly emotional when saying goodbye to eliminated bakers all contribute to a format that emphasizes kindness under pressure. In many ways, the show has become a showcase for how decency can coexist with high-stakes competition. However, that spirit doesn't always carry over to audience behavior online. Social media criticism and harassment directed at contestants has been a recurring issue, despite the show's ethos. One of the most widely reported cases involved 2020 finalist Laura Adlington, who was subjected to abusive comments from viewers during the season. Judge Paul Hollywood publicly condemned the behavior, calling it disgusting. The 2021 finale of The Great British Bake Off attracted more than 7 million viewers, making it easy to understand why the BBC has tried to replicate its success with a range of similar competition formats. Most of these follow a familiar structure. Amateur contestants take on weekly creative challenges. One participant is eliminated at a time, and a winner is eventually crowned. Even so, despite relying on a proven formula, these spin-offs have achieved varying levels of success. The Great British Sewing Bee has performed fairly well, positioning itself as a major sewing contest. However, it has sometimes struggled to appeal to a broader audience, largely because its challenges feel less immediately accessible. It's one thing to bake a Victoria sponge, and quite another to construct an entire garment from scratch. Another BBC attempt to capture similar appeal was The Great Pottery Throwdown, which aimed to spark nationwide enthusiasm for ceramics. Despite its ambitions, it never quite matched the cultural impact of Bake Off, and ultimately ended its original run in 2018. The massive popularity of The Great British Bake Off has become so firmly established that it's difficult to picture a time when its success was ever in question. Yet, it turns out that plenty of people were once unconvinced. Anna Beattie, the creator behind the original concept, spent around 4 years pitching the idea before it was finally commissioned and picked up for production.
It's the first time the bakers have really got to impress us and really show us what they can do.
As for where the idea came from, Beattie was reportedly inspired after a friend mentioned informal bake-off competitions held in the United States. She then reworked that concept by blending it with the feel of a traditional British village fete. The pairing of judges Mary Berry and Paul Hollywood became a key part of the formula, with Hollywood later saying he couldn't believe his luck when he was asked to return after the initial stages of development. He also told the Daily Mail that the rapid rise in the show's popularity took everyone by surprise. For Beattie, it marked the moment when years of pitching the idea finally paid off. If you think competing in the tent is tough, spare a thought for the production crew tasked with filming the chaos of 12 highly stressed bakers all working at once in the Great British Bake Off. Even with several cameras positioned throughout the tent and every contestant wearing a microphone, it's inevitable that some moments slip through the cracks. To reduce that risk, the team relies on a few simple but effective systems to make sure the most important action is captured. One key rule requires bakers to actively alert a camera whenever they place something in the oven and again when they take it out. That's why viewers so often hear the now familiar phrase, "I'm going in," as contestants signal the exact moment their bake begins its time in the heat.
The mixture is still liquid.
Even with the crew working hard to cover every angle, it's impossible to capture every moment as it happens. so the production team will occasionally ask contestants to redo certain actions for the camera. This kind of light reconstruction is fairly standard across most cooking and reality television shows, helping ensure the key steps are clearly recorded. From soggy bottoms to hot buns, playful innuendo has been woven into the Great British Bake Off since the very beginning. It's not just comic flavor added for effect, it also mirrors a broader tradition of British banter that runs through the show's tone and presentation. Judge Paul Hollywood has even acknowledged this aspect in interviews, including comments to The Guardian, reinforcing how central that tongue-in-cheek humor has become to the program's identity. British culture has always been based off it. Carry On Films did it for 30 years. It's in our DNA to giggle at ourselves.
No matter what it is, it's going in.
For certain viewers, the humor doesn't always land, and some have argued that in newer seasons, The Great British Bake Off has leaned too heavily into suggestive jokes. However, for most of the audience, that lighthearted back and forth is part of what makes the show so warm, familiar, and easy to enjoy.